My mailbag. By the way,
I saw a stat today.
Yeah.
44% of Russians wish they lived in another country.
Really?
Yes, it's a brutal place. I mean, it's just been taken over by if you're not an oligarch, you are living in a slum.
Yeah. I wonder how they do a poll like that. It seems fake. Fake news.
Yeah. It sounds right.
Speaking of Kaprizov, because this is Minnesota, I start off my gigantic meaty mailbag today with some bad news. I talked to his agent, Dan Milstein, yesterday, and Milstein again says that as many rumors are there that they're out there that he would be able to come here potentially if he won it all, which he did, that his contract is unbreakable and that he will be there until April 30th next year. So again, who knows, but that's, again, what they maintain.
From Alec, how much longer will the league put up with mediocre reffing in the playoffs? Sounds like they're not if they're actually bumping guys off.
Yeah, but then who advances? Steve Kazari, who's the guy that watched Morrissey cross Jack Stahl in the face last year. So I mean, the problem is, and I've said this a lot. I mean, they've retired so many good refs in the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, just great refs. I mean, and I know they're up there in age, but guys like Paul Dvorsky and Brad Watson and everybody from Rob Schick to Don Koharski to Don Van Massenhoven to Sally McMagoo, all these veteran refs that I think these young refs, they don't know what they were doing. I was just going to tell a story that was told to me off the record by a supervisor, but I better not tell that one. But it kind of lends to it where these refs are just so inexperienced right now, and they're all out there. And so I agree. I think the officiating has been horrendous.
From our friend Tony Hoagland, also our insurance agent, other than the 3 that were sent down at season's end, who in Iowa do you see being an NHL contributor in the next year or two?
Well, I mean, I see no reason why Jerry Mayhew shouldn't get an NHL deal, whether he's a contributor or not. I don't know. I liked what I saw from Belpedio and Soucy in those games. Soucy's been great in the second half of the season after a horrific start. Belpedio looks good to me, but that's a mostly minor league veteran team. I mean, there's not a lot of prospects on that team. I will say I love Cal O'Reilly. He's the glue of that team. Monday in The Athletic, I'm going to have an awesome Cal O'Reilly feature. I've talked to his brother, Ryan O'Reilly, who plays for St. Louis. I've talked to his mom, and his childhood is fascinating. And it really explains to how he became this type of leader. And it's an amazing story that I'm going to tell if I ever sit down and write it. So I hope that you read that on Monday. But I think the problem, to get to Tony's question, with all these guys, and it really explains Cal O'Reilly's career, is that Cal down in the minors, Kyle Rao down in the minors, Matt Reed down in the minors, all these guys are great minor league players and maybe could have been decent NHL players, but the problem is that every time they're called up, they're put in a 6-minute-a-night role on the fourth line. Right. And so Cal O'Reilly is a minor league scorer. He's a guy that's a power play stud down there. Well, it does not help him. How can he ever become a regular NHLer if he's just called up and you're thrown on the fourth line? And so you almost wish that a Cal O'Reilly, at a minimum, if he's going to play fourth line center here on the minimum times that he's been called up by the Wild, which has only been a handful in his couple of years here, that you at least throw him on the power play or something. Let him be put in a position to succeed. But the reality is that all coaches are going to go with the guys that are there. So if all of a sudden, a Zach Parise gets hurt, well, you're going to take a Jordan Greenway or maybe a third line winger that has that has power play potential, that hasn't gotten to play the power play. You're going to put him on the power play and not the fourth line veteran call up that comes up. So it's just hard. Once you're become a career minor leaguer, you're pretty much a career minor leaguer. And that team's full of career minor leaguers. I mean, as good as they've been and as entertaining as they've been, there's not a lot of prospects there. And what makes it intriguing is that in the next couple of years, they're starting to get an influx of young guys there. I can't wait to watch guys like Duheim and Durer and Ladnia there and Kovanov and these guys play in the AHL.
From Justin Wiggins, if the Bruins keep winning, how does that affect the draft pick from the Coyle?
It doesn't. That was my biggest my biggest criticism of it ever. Is hey, I give them the credit for taking that 5th round pick and making it a 4th if they won a round, which they did. But why, if they win 2 rounds, doesn't go to a 3rd? Why, if they win 3 rounds, doesn't go to a 2nd? Why was there not a player involved? I mean, this is what he should have done. It's like he tries too often to make quote, hockey trades, and he forgot that he's taking tradable known quantities and trading them for unknown quantities. And look, I love that he's gotten these 22-year-olds with skill, and I think Donato's going to be a great player, but you want to maximize your trades, and I don't know why that didn't advance. This team, everybody thought Boston was going to be a Stanley Cup contender, and it didn't go up, so it doesn't go. They could go win the cup, and it's still Donato in a fourth.
From Carson, do you think the Pavelski injury is going to hurt his contract negotiations as UFA?
It could. I mean, they're going to have to make sure he's healthy with every team. I will say, and I wrote this in the mailbag, as much as I like Joe, I still think it's a risk for the Wild to go get him. You're going to give him a 3-year deal. He's not going to score 38 with no playmaker here. He's not the fleetest of foot regardless. And all of a sudden, in 3 years, you're going to have a 38-year-old Suter, Pavelski, and Parise. I mean, it seems like the opposite of what Paul Fenton wants to do with this team. So,
from Kyle Yelly, I hope I get your name right. Do any offer sheets happen this summer?
Toronto would be the most at risk for them. This is why it's imperative that they get Marner done before free agency, most likely at the draft, because Marner, Kapanen, Janssen, those guys absolutely are offer sheet threats.
From Ryan Sonneson, who wins the Avs-Sharks series? I think the Avs would have beaten the Golden Knights.
Yeah, I picked the Avs in our athletic pool. I think I was at a 68-38 loss there in terms of, I think 68% of the athletic writers picked San Jose to win the series. But you know what? It was 98-2 Calgary to beat 98% to 2% Calgary beat Colorado, and I was one of the ones who picked Colorado. I just think they're no longer a one-line team. I think McKinnon's a man on the mission. I think Grubauer's been on a roll for 2 months. I like San Jose a lot. Without Pavelski, that hurts a ton. Karlsson, I don't like how he's played, and I don't like the things I hear about him off the ice there. I don't think he's the most beloved teammate. And Jones, to me, is still the question mark. But what I do love about that team, I love Burns, I love Vlasic, I love Braun. Hurdle's been unbelievable. LeBanc's been great. And Logan Couture, I think everybody knows. Sorry, I know he's the one that hurt Parise, but I think most people know that Logan's one of my favorite people and players in the league. I just think he's an incredible player, and it's such a shame that 5 years ago when the Wild could have traded for him, they didn't. So. 2 more
Twitter questions. Thanks for everybody sent them in. We're not getting to a lot today because we had so much story time, but we do appreciate the questions. Thanks again to Twill and the Edina Galleria, Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin, and FixologyRepair.com. Keep an eye out this summer for their new location in downtown St. Paul. From Todd Simonson, how many free sticks and pairs of skates does each player get per season?
Well, I mean, there's no such thing as free. The team pays for all the players' equipment, and all players are different. Some get a new stick every game, some every second game. As for the skates, they're probably 4 or 5 pairs each, but again, I mean, that's all paid for. So right. It's free for the players, I suppose, but the team pays for that stuff. Right. I mean, the equipment trainers, Tony DeCosta and those guys. It's funny. I was talking to Tuna, who's the longtime equipment manager of the Iowa Wild and Houston Aeros, and I was talking to him about just what they do down there because this was his first time with the playoffs, so he was like in a new position where all of a sudden he was like, oh my god, I got to order stuff for the playoffs and trying to make sure that he had enough inventory just in case they go on this crazy run. It was pretty funny.
From one more from Todd, we'll kind of wrap this up on a light note. Can you tell a funny story about what 2 players said to each other on the ice during a heated exchange? Any good stories about goofy exchanges?
God, off the top of my head, I mean, well, did you see the stuff? I mean, that was funny too. Did you see the stuff with Cam Atkinson and Brad Marchand today?
Yep.
So Brad stepped on his stick, and Cam came out and said that he owes him $300. So. If I was Brad Marchand, I'd tweet out something like, yeah, during our celebratory handshake, I will give you $300 cash. You might as well talk crap, which Brad Marchand's been known to do. But like Marchand, did you see he had a quote today about Riley Nash? He goes, Riley was physical in the game yesterday, and he goes, that guy in 2 years here didn't have one hit.
Wow.
That's an unbelievable thing. Cal Clutterbuck was the king thing. And I mean, if I remember, I wrote a really funny story once for the Strib about all Cal Clutterbucks. Like I said, give me your top 10 chirps that you've said. And not only did he me the chirps, but he told me who he said it to. So like Stefan Robidas, he went up to him and Stefan was like trash talking him in a game in Dallas. And he went over and he was like, hey, roll down the window. I can't hear you. Or something like that because he had that full mask. And he had all sorts of funny lines. I think it was Marchand, where he, was making fun of his nose and making fun of Posta's hair on his neck and like stuff like that. Cal was the king of the trash talking. I hear Eric Ferrer's really good at it. So those would be the kind of the big things. So.
Great stuff from Michael. Appreciate it.
Just one final thought, believe it or not.
I'll take a final thought.
So a really good one of my best friend as a kid's dad passed away the other day, and I just want to tell this funny story. So I was driving home from Des Moines thinking about it. So the first time I met this guy's dad, Perry, and his dad's name was Ari, I'm in his house, and Perry had been kind of prepping me for a while. Hey, just so you know, my dad is kind of a cantankerous, like curmudgeon type thing. So I'm sitting there, and I must have slept over or something because it was like in the morning, and it's like I'm in the off their kitchen, and their like kitchen table was sort of like a den, like a lot of houses in Florida had. And so I'm sitting on this leather couch watching TV, and Perry must have been asleep. And I'm sitting there, and his dad kind of like comes in this like white like undershirt or whatever. And I kind of see him. I'm like, hello. And he looks at me, doesn't say anything. And he's like making coffee or something. And he goes over the kitchen table, and Perry had just walked in. And he goes to Perry, he goes, whose keys are these? He picks up these keys. And I turn around, I'm like, oh, they're mine, sir. And he takes them and he pegs them at my face and hits me square on. And I have laughed so hard at telling this, thinking of this story and retelling this story over the years for so long. And but it was like his way of saying hello. It was like the perfect way after hearing about Arnie.
It sounds painful though.
Yeah, hear about Arnie, for as long as I had. It was the funniest thing. It was painful. I was a little spooked. But it, as it turned out, he was definitely one of my favorite people as a friend's dad. All the times I went over there, as cantankerous as it was, I'm pretty sure he liked me over time. I remember one of the first times I was there. They were originally from Northern California, and somehow wound up in Florida. And Arnie hated South Florida, hated it. And from the moment I met him, he told me how much South Florida sucks and that he was going to move back to California one day. And then all of a sudden, right after high school, boom, the whole family, the second Perry graduated from high school, the whole family moved back to California. So rest in peace to a very cool friend's dad.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing growing in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive